Well, good morning. Welcome back if you haven't been here before. If you're a first time listener to our webinars, welcome. Today, we're going to continue our ongoing segment on AI. So, today's title for our webinar is AI Unlocked. We're going to be navigating policy, protection, trends, and everybody's favorite, tomorrow's jobs. My name is Tim Norton, and I'm here with James Eubanks and Dan Olson. Dan's our VP of IT, and James is our head of AI solutions at Metro Sales. And they're going to be joining us and having a discussion on AI and the future of AI. We have a little bit of an agenda for everyone here today. So, first is why AI policy matters. Second is data protection in the age of AI. Third is AI trends. And then finally, the impact on jobs and the future of work with AI. If you're new to GoToWebinar, there is a chat feature on the right-hand side. And if there's any questions throughout today's webinar, please throw them in the chat. And at the end, we're going to do our best to answer your questions to the best of our abilities. But once again, thank you for everybody taking a little bit of time out of your day. This should go roughly 45 minutes or so. So if anybody has any questions throughout that time, again, put them in the chat so you don't forget. But James, we'll kick it over to you. So let me ask you this. Why does an AI policy matter for your organization?
Yeah, great question, Tim. So an AI policy matters when you're taking a look at your overall business and how AI fits in there. You also have a series of items that you want to consider when you're taking AI into place. What are your business goals? So is your business goal to help your accounting teams with AI usage? What exactly does AI mean to you within your business realm? And one of those big things is what data do you have internally that is confidential? It's data secure to you, and you don't want to release that information, or do you carry or hold any customer data that you want to make sure that doesn't get out there into the greater world with any kind of AI usage? So with those things in mind, once you formulate that core to your AI policy, you want to just start thinking about, okay, I want to make sure that I have adoption across all of our departments. I want to make sure that I have a policy that fits into the systems of all of our different departments, and we get our guidance to all of your employees on the best practices for that AI. And I think that particular piece is extremely important within an AI, because if your AI best practices aren't in there, people may use AI in a way that is technically compliant, but might not be the best practice for them to do. They may put in something that might not quite be confidential, but it's something that you might have wanted to protect. Uh, and last but not least, one of the big things around AI policy is it contains shadow AI usage. What I mean around shadow AI usage is you have dictated within your policy, or just even verbally before you've built your policy, I want these particular tools of the AI realm to be utilized. And what shadow AI usage is your employees or your associates going to a chat GPT or utilizing an AI tool that isn't something that you dictated, but it is considered shadow AI usage because it's some AI usage that goes underneath the radar of your AI policy. So it's very important to contain some of that usage to help make sure that you have that, protection around all of your data.
Well, what would
So
the
James, would
harm
it
in that
be
be?
Yeah.
What would the harm in that be, James, if somebody's using AI shadow usage in your organization?
Yeah, so one of the big things you get in the harm from shadow AI usage. So let's take, for example, you've dictated that we have a tool that we have built out with ChatGPT. You've signed an agreement with ChatGPT. You're going to be using them as your tool. Well, as part of that, they're using that tool, but then they go, well, I get a better result if I go over here to, say, Gemini, Google's tool, or if I use some sort of other AI tool. I think I get a better result. I'm going to start using that. The risk is you've signed an agreement to help protect your data with ChatGPT, and they're over here using a different AI system that you don't have an agreement with, you could have data exfiltration without your knowledge.
So, James, can you elaborate a little on that exfiltration piece and what that really means and what could it lead to?
Yeah, so that's something that we're going to definitely kind of take a look at and expand upon a little bit later. But yeah, so when we're talking about data exfiltration, they take a screenshot of something they're working on within a spreadsheet, they upload that to an AI system, and they start asking it to do things within that screenshot or even the spreadsheet itself. Well, that upload becomes logged on that AI system's server. So that is just sitting there on that server, and if you haven't signed a contract with that AI provider, you're going to basically hit a wall, and they may take that data and use it as part of their training models, which we're going to expand upon a little bit later.
Great. So then we have some core elements of an AI policy. James, take us through those.
Yeah, so one of our core elements of these AI policy, when we're talking about just core, these are just kind of the root things, and you can just really expand upon each of these elements here. The biggest one you want is you want to define your scope, right? What do you want covered underneath this AI policy, right? What pieces of data do you not want to go in there? What tools have you signed with? Like I used in my example previously, you signed an agreement with ChatGPT. You want ChatGPT to be the one to be used, right? So that is part of that scope where you're defining exactly what you want to be covered within this policy. And then another piece you want to also get into is risk. So one of those risk pieces that I'm kind of more talking about is when you're looking at your data and you're looking at what you want to utilize with those tools, how much of your data do you want connected to an AI tool, right? How much of your data do you want to allow your employees to utilize with AI tools? That's the biggest consideration to take out with an AI system, is how much of that data you want used within one of those tools. And then when they use that data, so say it's a high risk data usage, you're uploading a quarterly data spreadsheet. Do they need an approval before they send that out into an AI system? Do they need to get their supervisor on the line and say, hey, I'm going to be using an AI tool to help me analyze this data. Is that okay? So those are some of the things that you want to take into class, excuse me, into that classification aspect. And data handling goes hand in hand with that risk and that scope. They kind of all work together to make your overall AI policy. And that's just making sure that the data being uploaded into these AI tools is data that you want uploaded into these AI tools, either through agreements you've signed with them or just in general usage.
So when you look at things like classification, that can be a really broad topic, right? Like, do I have to go to every file and classify it? And I think you can stay at a higher level. But the things that you have to make sure you consider is, do I have compliance requirements? Do I have healthcare information? Do I have financial information? Do I have private customer information? Those types of classifications are obviously going to be critical. And then a great definition and ongoing training, quite honestly, throughout your staff to understand what those classifications mean, how to use them, when to use them, and where to use them. So all that should be included in this policy. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I highly agree. And in addition to that, whenever you onboard a new employee, rehashing the AI policy on onboarding new employees is paramount. And then eventually, as you train, 7 methods, 7 ways with your employees, as you do this training, AI then becomes second nature. All of those different classifications come second nature to your employees. So when new employees are onboarded, that data and that knowledge is passed down from one associate to another.
So if you don't necessarily have the internal resources to create your own policy, how would the two of you suggest a small business begins writing their own AI policy?
It's a great question on that end of things. So there's a variety of tools out there. I can't speak towards the legal aspect of writing out a policy. You may want to get a lawyer involved or something like that when you're analyzing that. But there are a series of tools around the internet now concerning AI policies. It's become a very hot topic. There are a series of law firms out there that kind of have some sample policies in place that you most likely be able to grab and can basically work it into being part of your business and your the way your business operates. So there's a ton of tools out there for that.
Yeah, and we're also in the process now of finalizing the agreements that we can help our customers with as well to help polish off that end of it, if you will, and give you good starting points, give you good classification guidelines, all the basics that go into it to help make it your own. So you just kind of put the final touches as it matters to your business.
That's great. Thank you, guys. So regarding data protection in the age of AI, I have to assume there's a wide variety of data to protect. You have your internal data, your customers' data. How does that work, James? How do we begin protecting our data with AI?
Yeah, so here's this term, shadow AI usage again. This is just a whole nother thing to just keep in mind when you're trying to develop what is your data protection around AI, is knowing the fact that your employees and your associates may still go to these tools, but one thing you can do to help protect yourself against shadow AI usage is put in some access controls, put in some blockers, put in some things like that. Our MTS staff is very well versed in being able to handle MTS or access controls, as Dan can speak to.
Yeah, from my perspective, it's really about making sure that you understand. So when I look at shadow AI, I go back to 12, 15 years ago with shadow IT, and people started having the ability to bring in solutions that maybe weren't business authorized, but it helps them. And, there were just applications that you could start using, cloud services you could start using that nobody ever had a handle on. We're kind of going through the next phase of that now. Cybersecurity tools weren't ready for shadow AI. Many of them aren't ready for shadow AI now or shadow IT back then. And having the ability to figure out what all that means, what it means to your business, and how to organize against it is going to be critical.
Yeah, and part of that access control building is making sure that you classify what data you want to be protected from AI models. And this all wraps back to that policy, right? So your policy can be quite all-encompassing when it comes to these items. The more robust your AI policy, the better the data protection you're going to have. So it's really making sure at a high level you classify your data. Don't go file by file, Q1 2025, that file can't go into AI. More of a high level item. I don't want any financial spreadsheets going into there. That's more kind of what we're talking about when we talk about that classification of data. So
I would say that their side of it is, where is there, right? Like, I don't want it to go into Gemini because I don't have an agreement with Gemini. Maybe I am comfortable with the terms of service I have with a Grok or a ChatGPT, or my agreement with Microsoft because I have license with them already. So reviewing those terms is going to be critical, and then determining how do we use each engine for what functions and what can and can't go in there is going to be critical definitions.
Yeah, and speaking to those tiers, we actually have a protection matrix here that's going to be talking about those tiers. So Tim, if you want to switch to the next slide here. So this data matrix, just to kind of start off with our very first thing here, this is highly generalized. It fits the vast majority of cases out there, but there are so many AI tools out there that have unique agreements with some of these public AI tools that they can't all be encompassed within this matrix. But generalized, this is kind of how we look at when we look at matrix. So for those public AI tools, you're loading up ChatGPT, you're using the free tier and asking it questions. You are part of the data harvesting for that. So if you are using on a shadow AI and you're using ChatGPT free tier and you upload a document or you ask a question and you get a response, they use all of that as part of their training data, and it can cause leaks of business critical information, has been shown in the past to do so. So when I talk about that public AI usage, that is one of the big ones to make sure you consider when it comes within your AI policy and data protection, is making sure that you restrict the usage of those free or public tools. So next up we're going is yes, Tim.
So one thing I just wanted to clarify there, James, too, because there's layers here that I don't think people really understand. There's only 5 or 6 real back-end large language model engines, or if you like, that everybody ties into. There's thousands, tens of thousands of AI solutions that on the back end might be 70% of them are ChatGPT. So you've got double considerations there as you're working with a tool that is an AI tool, but they're not really providing the AI. What is your terms of service with them? What are their promises with their integrations? I mean, so you've got to go through all of those layers and make sure it has synergy with what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, 100%. Great point on that, Dan. Is yes, most of these AI tools you see are just front ends to the backbone of ChatGPT, Gemini, Meta, etc. So those major providers, Anthropic, all of those. So the other thing that you can do is you can also enter into a paid tier, but not enterprise. There's a separation in paid tiers here. So a paid tier, it can be a decent cost. It can be quite extensive cost. It can also be a lower cost, but you're also only protected by the terms of service provided by that vendor. It's a generalized terms of service provided to every single person that signs on, and there's 2 forms of terms of service. There's the terms of service for the free tiers and the terms of service for the paid tiers. Now, within the terms of service for the paid tiers, I'll stick with ChatGPT for instance here. If you do pay for ChatGPT, you are protected by the TOS. It says that they will not use your data for training, but we have seen leaks in the past where some of that data has been used for training because there is crosstalk. They are held on the same server. If a flag is missed, to protect the data, you could have some of that crosstalk. So that is something to take into consideration. Even if you pay for a tool, make sure you thoroughly read through the terms of service and make sure you are okay with the limitations of within those terms of services.
And they are changing
if you're using a
regularly.
front-end tool.
You'll be aware of as they modify and grow. And
100%. Last but not least is the most protective tier. It is the enterprise contract tier. Now, depending on who is providing the enterprise contract to you, you can dictate the terms of those contracts. Depending on how high of a level you are working within. If you're a JP Morgan, and I'm not sure if there's anybody JP Morgan in this chat, but if you're a JP Morgan and you're signing a contract with ChatGPT, you probably wrote and dictated every single term on there. So ChatGPT will allow you to write the terms of your enterprise contract, and you can do things like, I want an isolated silo of my data to utilize with your GPT system. And all of the major providers provide very similar items. I'm just using ChatGPT because it is the most well known. But you can dictate those harvesting rules. Basically, yes, I want you to harvest my data, but only to fine-tune a model just for us. So those are kind of the terms that you can dictate within enterprise contracts, and the vast majority of the time you operate within a dedicated instance or a dedicated server providing you that tool.
James or Dan, do you have any experience dictating some of these rules in either our contract or with one of our customers? And if so, how does that work? How would the common business owner be able to do that?
I think it really depends, like James was referring to, who you are, right? And how much you're spending, kind of. They'll work with you much, much more the higher you go. For the average everyday business, you're going to have a hard time gaining a lot of traction, and they're going to give you their template, and you get to say, I'd like to change this and that and the other thing, and they may or may not listen, depending on the real spend that's coming into it. So it's going to be dynamic for every organization, and it's going to be also dynamic based upon how much effort, time, and probably money into working through that process in the front end to ensure you've got everything that you can feel comfortable with.
makes sense. So current AI trends, we're hearing a lot about AI in the news. I know we're talking about it quite frequently internally. James, any trends that you'd like to go over for the group here?
Yeah, so I like to highlight that very top bullet point. The large language models, the very big ones, the Geminis, the ChatGPTs, etc. All the public data, they have pretty much swept the entire internet. So the public data used for those training, it's almost exhausted for them. Obviously, they can still train and gather in new data as it's created, but we've noticed over the past 6 months or so, training and the acceleration of these models has really kind of slowed down. I'll take ChatGPT 5 for the best one. That's the first and foremost in the forefront of everybody's minds. The jump from GPT-4 to GPT-5 was very minimal, and in some cases worse than the GPT-4 models. And the reason being is there's not a whole lot more data for them to train on. Obviously, it took you 2 years to go from 4 to 5, but that set of data that they used is kind of pretty much exhausted. They're just training on new stuff. So the leap wasn't very big. But what they're trying to do to overcome that is becoming a thinking model. So you may have seen in a lot of news reports about models that think. And what I mean by those is the model talks to itself. It's like an internal monologue of questions that it asks itself. You give it a prompt and it sits there and goes, okay, well, let me break this down piece by piece. Let me break it down into a method that I can think of and I can understand. And it sits there and thinks about it. And if you've used GPT-5 lately, it's thinking usually for 30 to 40 seconds before it gives you a response.
So what is the difference between training and thinking in that case, James?
Yeah, so when we're talking about training a model, so you suck up a huge number of data points for this model, and then you train the model against those points with essentially an algorithm that distills all of that down into a series of parameters. You probably have heard people talk about a series of parameters, and the larger the model, the larger the parameter base for it to choose from, and it tokenizes everything that you ask it, splits it up into tiny little words, and then runs it through the algorithm and produces an output. So that's training. So that's the root of every single AI large language model, is its training data set and how those algorithms work within that training data set. The thinking models take that and add more prompting to it, essentially. You add its input prompt, and then it adds its own prompts to itself while it thinks about your question before producing an output. And that's how you get a much better output versus what you put in prior to that without a thinking model. And that's a very distilled down version of how the thinking models work.
Yeah, I would compare that to the way we treated GPT-4 as an example, where you'd ask it something or you'd prompt it for something. It would come back with a response, and your answer would be, you're way off the mark. That's not even what I asked for. And you kind of re-ask the question in a different way. That thinking model is now, you'll see it if you expand it out. I think what they're looking for is this. So if I re-query it this way, and so it's kind of doing that back and forth for you, may or may not be effective, but it's trying in the end to try to give you a better result.
Yeah, and the future of AI is starting to become thinking models that also call tools, and that's leaning into this agentic AI or agentic AI, whichever way you want to pronounce it. I've heard it both ways, but this AI type of system is one that actually uses a bunch of tools to help produce things. A great way of thinking about this is agentic AIs would be, you say, hey, I want to take a trip to Bali. I need you to book me the flight, the hotel, a couple things to do, and a car. The agentic AI is going to take that information, load up your web browser, start reading all the web pages, find you the best flight that it can, find you the best hotels that it can, find you, basically all of those informations and book them for you. It's basically booking a trip for you from start to finish. So that's what agentic AI is. It's a thinking model combined with a set of tools that allow it to operate items within your computer. So while thinking and agentic AIs are basically, almost the same, they are not quite the same because one calls a lot more tools than the other.
So when you're talking about something like that agentic, booking your trip, if you will, I mean, do I give it my credit card? Do I literally say, yeah, go buy all this stuff? Where do I lose control? Am I in trouble? Where are we at on that?
Yeah, the prompt becomes extremely important at that point when you're talking about an agentic AI is because, yes, it's going to go to, say, Booking.com. If you're logged in, you're with your Booking.com, your credit cards are loaded, it's gonna just straight book it for you. And some of the other risks you have is, oh, I didn't tell it what, I'm looking for a 3 or 4-star hotel. Well, it's looking for the best. It booked you a 5-star hotel at $1,300 a night, and that's not quite what you wanted. But especially if it booked it automatically with a non-refundable deposit, that's kind of those risks that you kind of entail when you're working with an agentic AI system, is because you've just basically let it free run all over your items, and it can have access to your credit card data, especially if you're already logged in, book things for you, do things for you that you might not want it to actually do.
So that's a great example for my vacation. As I translate that into my business, I'm guessing I face the same problems, right? Unless I had the absolute perfect prompt, I may end up in areas that are maybe risky, undesired, or just wrong. Is that pretty common today in the AI world?
Yeah, so when you're using agentic AI within your business space, it has access to everything on your computer that you do. Unless you implement tools or restrictions to help contain it to the areas that you only want it to see it in. So say your SharePoint is up and active. You asked it, oh, I want to be able to grab this Excel document over here. Well, without proper permissions rules within your SharePoint, it could theoretically have access to your financial documents that maybe your CFO put in place that you can now grab with the agentic AI that you didn't know they were there, but it found them through its queries and its calls. So those are some of the risks that you get with an agentic AI having complete control over a computer or a system, is if you have access to it, that system does. And if you don't form your prompt properly, you risk data loss, data exfiltration, etc.
So that's I'd call that in its infancy today, the agentic stuff, right? And those are the pitfalls of anything in its infancy. As this continues to mature, it's going to get better and better at understanding what you're shooting for, what you're trying to accomplish. It'll fill in the gaps for poor queries or poor information going in a little bit better, but that's a ways out. Is that a next year? Is that a 5 years? Is that a 50 years? I mean, do you have any idea how fast this might evolve?
Yeah, so the agentic AIs, excuse me, are within their infancy, as you mentioned, but I think over the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to see major leaps in agentic AI as they develop better vision learning, better kind of breakdowns of permissions between the two. But the bigger thing is going to be those access controls and those robust AI policies, and basically having somebody to help control what these agentic AIs can actually access and do. I think the vast majority of our major models that have agentic AI systems being built right now aren't going to put shackles or restrictions on these AIs. They're just going to improve what they can do. It's going to be up to the business owner, business individual to make sure that they put those shackles on that agentic AI to make sure that it can't handle or access anything it needs.
So I heard stay tuned. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's definitely stay tuned. Yeah, it's in its infancy. Agentic AIs have been around since last year. I mean, obviously they've been around for much longer than that, but in the mainstream since last year, and they are improving bit by bit slowly.
There are mornings where I wake up and I think that everybody has my credit card information, but James, how easy would it be for a bad actor to retrieve it right now through agentic AI if it's in there?
So it's not necessarily super easy to retrieve. So let's just say you're using an agentic AI with a public free tool, that whole tree, and that information gets absorbed into, say, ChatGPT. They absorb it, they use it to train their next model. That's when data can start being kind of exfiltrated with some prompt hacking. So is what the term for it is finding a way to pull information out of an LLM utilizing prompts.
Got it. Okay.
But today, the credit card is technically stored in your browser, not in the agentic AI in most cases, right?
Correct. Most of them start in your browser or through a application on your computer. So I know ChatGPT operates with an application. There's a few other agentic AIs out there that are operating through an application on your computer.
Makes sense. So, regarding the impact on jobs, I think that's everybody's primary concern in the future of work. Do we have any thoughts around how AI will influence jobs and people's day-to-day living here in the future?
Yeah, so AI is here to stay. It's going to be impactful. I saw a recent report about AI bubbles and things like that. I don't think that that's going to be the case. There may be some deflation around AI. Obviously, people are not very happy with GPT's leap, so there's a lot of speculation going out there right now. But AI is here to stay. It's literally the next revolution. We had the Industrial Revolution, which obviously impacted work and made people more efficient. We had the computer age. We had the information age when the internet became mainstream and everybody got even more efficient beyond that. AI is just another age. Within humanity's productivity improvements, it's like a third arm. It's going to assist and help long term with making sure that humanity becomes more efficient. That being said, there will be some impact to jobs with AI systems. There's going to be low-level impact for some of those blue-collar jobs that we don't have robotics for. It's going to be low-level impact to them, but it's going to assist them for maybe finding code. So you're an electrician working on a house. Okay, what's the code for this 220-volt box behind a washer, right? Where can I put that? Well, you could utilize an AI tool to help you find that information faster. But one of the big things that might be impacted the most, and we already see it if anybody's ever gone through a Taco Bell drive-thru recently, they're utilizing an AI tool to take your order. So they're using a voice AI system to take your order. And so some of those low-level, entry-level jobs, data entry, order taker on fast food, are starting to see impacts in the world of AI.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, what I really see in the near future anyway is AI is going to allow your average, especially intelligence-based worker, become more productive. And what that means, so you're not going to be able to say, hey, let's give this next job to AI. Vast majority of roles. But what you will do is you'll be able to enhance their productivity. You'll be able to make them more effective at what they do. And if you actually go through the process of having them be, let's just say your staff is 5% more effective because of the implementation of AI, that means you can do a 100-person job with 95 people, right? And you will see those types of impacts sooner and sooner and sooner as this continues to evolve. And that's the key things I would be looking at is how do I make the people I already have, the next people I'm going to be bringing into my organization, a little bit more effective? What's the repeatable tasks? What's the things that data is hard to find? It's unique cases that people aren't just going to be good at. You can start optimizing those things and really get them to the point where they do start experiencing more efficiency and more effectiveness in the roles that they have. And over time, you will just see that you can do it with less.
Yeah, one of the biggest impacts I see with the future of work here is more and more companies are going to start taking their data, their documents, their data, and things like that, and utilizing a system called RAG within LLMs. I'm not sure if you've heard of that before, but RAG is Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's basically a way for the LLM to read your data read your documents and be able to provide a quick and easy way for you to use natural language to discover information within those documents or query within those documents. That's going to be something that's going to become more and more and more implemented within companies over the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, it's something we've already done here. In fact, we've got our own AI system that we've built, purpose built for having the ability to optimize the data that we access all the time, troubleshooting manuals, things like that. We can have people in the field that used to take 9 months to get them ready. We can have them ready in 2 to 3 weeks, just with the availability of that information right at their fingertips. So that's a great example of how you just kind of optimize it, put those layers of specialized data on top, almost like a small language model on top of that large language model, if you will.
Well, that's great. It sounds like we'd be using AI more and more frequently to help train up new associates. So, in fact, after hearing that, James and Dan, it sounds like we shouldn't be afraid of it. We should really embrace it and use it for opportunities like that. So that's fantastic. So regarding the future of work here, James, take us through that.
Yeah, so it looks like that's like kind of duplicated. So we did cover this, the future of work. We kind of covered them to the two of it. So we are down to question and answer, Tim. So if you want to flip to the next slide.
Yeah,
Sorry
absolutely.
about that.
No, that's great. I do see a couple of questions here in the chat. Bear with me 1 second here. So I guess one of you guys, if you want to answer this, why do we need a formal AI policy if we already have data privacy rules? Any ideas?
Yeah, so when you're talking about having a formal AI policy over data privacy rules, so most organizations that have IT have a data privacy policy or rule set in place. AI is a layer on top of that, right? You're putting icing on top of the cake that's already been made, right? You're just basically making sure that all the data policies you put in place now say, hey, if you use the same types of data policies within an AI realm, these tools, these large language models, these companies, they still conform within our standard data privacy policies. And so it's basically just making sure that you put in guardrails so that everything kind of works all together as one rather than two separate policies. And I think Dan can speak a little bit more towards the data privacy part.
Yeah, I think the biggest piece there is making sure that you've got a great definition to prevent the shadow AI pieces, right? Like who can use what applications or what solutions that lay on top of AI applications are you allowed to use, understanding what they have on the back end and being very specific, intentional about how your business uses AI effectively, especially with those concerns that you might have with compliance or whatever it might be, and how that information might be used. Because otherwise you will have a world where it's like, I understand this piece, but I'm just going to go use this tool that I use at home, and that could be a big problem. So it's reining that in, as James says, putting those guardrails in on how you would overall organize that.
Yeah, makes sense. I could have anticipated this next question. We've seen a few of these. Should we be worried about AI making mistakes that could damage client relationships? What do we think?
Yeah, that's critical, Tim, because if you want examples of this, go to your favorite engine, go to ChatGPT and ask it a question, and you may not like the answer every time. Like it didn't even understand you well, or it gave back maybe imperfect information. You ask it over and over, or you force it to continue to distill out those answers, it will do something called hallucinate. In other words, every major engine out there right now is designed to give you a response. And if you push it and push it and push it and say not good enough, it will start making up information. It will start giving you information that isn't accurate, isn't valid, and may not even apply. And if you just blindly have systems that are just going to take that feedback and utilize it, you're going to have high risk. And this will get better over time, but that is for sure the state of where we are today.
Yeah, and exactly to Dan's point there, even if you have an AI chatbot, for instance, that tags back to a knowledge base that you've provided it, and it references that knowledge base when attempting to make conversations. I take into example, there was a car dealership that had an AI chat bot. It was tagged back to their systems. It knew prices of cars and everything else like that. Somebody was able to prompt engineer and prompt hack their way around it to have the AI system say, yeah, I'll sell you that car for $1. Just go ahead and show this at the dealership. You'll have the car for $1. So those are the risks that you entail, even if you put as many guardrails as possible when utilizing these large language model systems tagged back to your own data.
Yeah, good answer, guys. Here's another one. Sounds like you guys have a good handle on this. Thank you. How is MSI helping companies today?
So I alluded to this a little bit earlier. We're enhancing our IT services to include for every one of our current customers and future customers multiple layers of AI assistance. We expect to be technology experts with our IT services today. We expect to be AI experts, and we have a ever-growing team of people that are already in position and knowledgeable. James is one example of that are ready to help our customers. And layer 1 is helping with those policies. Actually, layer 0.5, before you even get to that, is looking at an AI readiness process, right? Like, where are you at today? How ready are you in 6 or 7 or 8 different areas where AI can influence your business? We'll go into consulting, so we'll spend some time with our customers every single month to just be that interface of, what about this? What about that? My competitors are doing this. What does it mean? And just kind of be that sanity check all the way through to, we can be your virtual AI officer and get to understand your business and your objectives and everything in between. So we've got a suite of solutions that is going to meet the demands of most, especially SMBs today. And as we continue to refine and evolve as AI refines and evolves, it's our goal to keep up with that forever, and it moves fast. So it's an ambitious goal, obviously.
That's fantastic. I appreciate that. It sort of summarizes the questions that were asked today. Everybody who joined, thank you so much. I'm sure questions might not come to mind immediately, but you can always email us. We've set up an email address, questions@metrosales.com, for this webinar, any future webinars, any past webinars that you might listen to on our YouTube page. But again, feel free to reach out to us. You can call us as well, call our main line. We'd love to set you up in a meeting, either with one of our evangelists from our IT team to help discuss our total offering, or James or Dan or myself. And we'd be more than happy to further this discussion with you and your organization. But again, thank you for the turnout. Dan, James, I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, everybody have a great day.